Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're having a wonderful week. Like always, I'm continuing with my K-Bush discography journey, and we made it to the year 1980, 40 years ago, when she released her third studio album, Never Forever. And it's really interesting because it says here that it was Bush's first number one album. It was also the first ever album by a British female solo artist to top the UK album chart, as well as being the first album by any female solo artist to enter the chart at number one. It also says here that Kate Bush felt that this was the first album she was happy with, since it was more personal. So I'm very curious to find out as to what is in store for me when it comes to the lyrics and the stories on this album that she has to share with me. Now, there are 11 tracks on the album, and the album is 37 minutes. I don't recall hearing any of these songs before. And other than that, I don't have much to say right now, so let's jump into the first track. Track number one, Babushka. I love that part. Alrighty, that was track number one, Babushka. Now, I'm sure most of you watching already know what a babushka is, but for those of you who don't know, I'm gonna let you know right now. It is a headscarf folded triangularly and tied under the chin, traditionally worn by women in Eastern Europe, typically elderly Russian or Polish women, especially grandmothers. Now, as a kid, I remember my grandmother wearing a babushka. I really did enjoy the song, and just like so many other Kate Bush songs, I am loving the lyrics. I can't even articulate how much I enjoy her lyrics, even though I do struggle most of the time trying to interpret what she's saying. Whenever I sit down to listen to a Kate Bush album, I always look forward to reading the lyrics because I'm essentially reading her diary, I'm reading stories, and I feel like I'm reading fairy tales or a woman's personal diary. She says that she wanted to test her husband and she knew exactly what to do. So she used a pseudonym to fool him. Now, a pseudonym is a replacement for someone's name. It's an alternative, a substitute. So it looks like she is disguising herself to fool him. She was sending her husband letters, scented letters under this pseudonym, under this alias, and how she was before the years flew by and how she was when she was beautiful. She signed the letter. So she's kind of reminiscing to back when she wasn't crying before the tears, before the years flew by and when she was beautiful. And then she goes on to say she wanted to take it further and she arranged a place to go to see if he would fall for her incognito. So she's under disguise once again. So it looks like she's testing her husband to see if he still loves her after all these years. And in order to do that, she is using a pseudonym and she's disguising herself. And all yours, Babushka. So it looks like she's disguising herself as the name Babushka. That's the name she's giving herself. I don't think she's singing about an actual babushka. I think it's just her alias. I could be wrong though. Or maybe her name is Babushka, her alias, but she's also wearing a babushka in disguise when she's incognito. I'm reading here that the song chronicles a wife's desire to test her husband's loyalty. To do so, she takes on the pseudonym of Babushka and sends notes to her husband in the guise of a younger woman. Oh. Something which she fears is the opposite of how her husband currently sees her. So she's disguising herself as a younger woman, a beautiful younger woman, something that she doesn't see herself as anymore. And the trap is set when, in her bitterness and paranoia, Babushka arranges to meet her husband, who is attracted to the character who reminds him of his wife in earlier times. She thereby ruins the relationship due to her paranoia. What I also liked about the song was the sounds of glass breaking. Now, this might sound weird, but I like the sound of glass breaking. I don't know why, but to me, it's a very pleasant sound, even though to many people it's not. I just like the sound of breaking glass, and I don't know why. It can be disturbing at times, like, for example, when you're sitting down to eat in a restaurant and all of a sudden you hear like 10 plates crash onto the ground and break into a million pieces. That's a little shocking because you're not expecting the sound, but when I do hear it, I don't know, I just like the sound of breaking glass. It's very strange. So now let's move on to track number 2, Delias, Song of Summer. Already, that was track number 2, Delias, Song of Summer, and unlike the sound of breaking glass, which I love, I absolutely hate the buzzing of flies, which I think is what I heard at the end of the song. So I actually don't know who or what Delias is, so I had to do a bit of research, and it says here that Delias is a name of Apollo from the island in which he was born. Delias is also a popular last name for many people in Germany, it looks like, so I don't know, it could just be a reference to an actual person. It says here, Delias, he's a moody old man. Delias to be sung of a summer. Delias, night on the water. And then she also brings up the words genius and syphilis as well. I honestly have no idea what the song's about, so I actually had to look into it. And it says here that the song was inspired by Ken Russell's film Song of Summer, which Kate had watched when she was 10 years old. It says that in his 20s, Delias contracted syphilis, which is what she mentions in the song. There are parts of the song where you do hear an older gentleman singing and hearing what appears to be gibberish at times, like ta ta ta. I don't know if that has significance, the words ta ta ta, but you do hear him say those words, so I imagine that's the moody old man who has syphilis. I will also say that I'm enjoying the production on this album, just like any other Kate Bush album. I never know what to expect when it comes to the production. I always hear strange and quirky sounds that I've never heard before in a song or album. That's why I love listening to Kate Bush's albums for the first time, because her music is unlike any other artist I've ever listened to. So it's always a treat to sit down and listen to her albums for the first time. So now let's move on to track number 3, Blow Away. Alrighty, that was track number 3, A Blow Away, and I have no idea what she's singing about in this song. One of the band told me last night that music is all that he's got in his life. Well, where will it go? Surely not with his soul. Will all of his licks and his R&B blow away? It looks like she might be singing about death. She said, our engineer had a different idea from people who nearly died but survived, feeling no fear of leaving their bodies here, and went to a room that was full of visitors. So when she says, and went to a room that was full of visitors, she might be singing about a hospital. Hello, Minnie, Moody, Vicious, Buddy Holly, Sandy, Denny. I don't know who those people are. Please don't thump me, don't bump me, don't dump me back there. She also says, I want to stay here, put out the light, then put out the night. Vibes in the sky invite you to die. Dust to dust, blow to blow. So I feel like this song is about passing away and not wanting to leave, wanting to live. I don't know. It could be about that. I really have no idea. It says here that the song Blow Away was dedicated to Bill Duffield. The phrase put out the light, then put out the light comes from Shakespeare's Othello in the scene just before Othello kills Desdemona, which I don't think I've ever read Othello before. The song mentions the names of deceased musicians in the following order. Minnie, and then, oh, okay, so that's where the names come from. They are deceased musicians. Now, Othello isn't a William Shakespeare play that I have read. You'd think I would have in school, because I read all the other ones, like Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, and Hamlet, of course. I think another one, A Midsummer's Night's Dream, which I love. For some reason, that one always stood out to me. But Othello, I never read it. It is interesting how 2 out of the 3 songs I've listened to already were inspired by other mediums like movies and plays from Shakespeare, Othello, and also Ken Russell's film Song of the Summer, which I haven't seen or read yet. I haven't seen Song of the Summer or read Othello yet. I will say though, Kate Bush has referenced other mediums before in her other songs. She did reference the book Wuthering Heights, which I haven't read yet. I mean, these things that she's referencing, I haven't seen or read yet. Kate Bush is just too sophisticated for me, honestly. I'm always jealous of people who can read books from hundreds of years ago and just read Shakespeare in their off time and just read poems from centuries past and these stories I've never heard of and listen to these musicians I've never heard of. Too sophisticated for me, honestly. However, I will say right now, I am reading The Vampire Chronicles by Anne Rice, and I'm on book 6. And let me tell you, I am loving that series. So if I was to write a song that referenced another medium like a book, it probably would be The Vampire Chronicles by Anne Rice. So now let's move on to track number 4, All We Ever Look For. Alrighty, that was track number 4, All We Ever Look For, and this was very interesting to listen to. All the sounds I heard whistling, I think I heard chanting at one point, some sort of tribal chanting, and the sound of heels hitting the ground and walking, stilettos perhaps, I don't know, some sort of footwear, someone walking along the ground. Um, just look at your father and you'll see how you took after him. Me, I'm just another, like my brothers, of my mother's genes. All they really want for you are the things they didn't do. The whims that we're weeping for, our parents would be beaten for. So it looks like she's singing about family, her father, her brothers, her mother's genes. All they really want for you are the things they didn't do. So when she says that, I'm thinking that perhaps she's speaking about parents and how they want the best for their children, how they want their children to do things that they themselves couldn't do. Parents always want their children to have better lives than they did. Perhaps they grew up poor or struggling and they don't want that for their kids. They want their kids to have opportunities that they themselves never had. At least that's what I'm thinking that she's talking about. I could be wrong. The whims that we're weeping for, our parents would be beaten for. So the whims that we're weeping for, our parents would have been beaten for. So I'm kind of forming a connection here. Leave the breast and then the nest, and then you regret you ever left. So when you finally do leave home and you're grown up, you're 18 years old, you go off to college or wherever, you go to travel the world, you leave home, and you or your parents instantly regret it because you're excited to leave home, your parents are excited that you're finally growing up, you're going off to do your own thing, but once that happens, you regret it or your parents regret it, and you become sad. I don't know, she could be alluding to that as well. Kate Bush herself said that all we ever look for is about how we seek something, but in the wrong way or at wrong times, so it is never found. She also says that the song is not about her, it's about family relationships generally. Our parents got beaten physically, we get beaten psychologically. That's the way it is. You do get faced sometimes with futile situations, but the answer is not to kill yourself. You have to accept it. You have to cope with it. So I was kind of right. I was on the right track. All We Ever Look For is definitely one of my favorite tracks on the album so far. I just really enjoyed the production, and now after reading the lyrics and knowing the story behind them, I also really enjoy the lyrics as well. So now let's move on to track number 5, Egypt. Alrighty, that was track number 5, Egypt, and this was another song I enjoyed. In particular, the last minute and a half or so, where it was just purely instrumental, which I really liked. I feel like this song is pretty straightforward. She is essentially discussing her love for Egypt. Follow the Nile deep, too much deeper. The pyramids sound lonely tonight. The sands run red in lands of the Pharaoh. I love anything that has to do with Egypt. Ever since I watched The Mummy with Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz when I was a kid, I fell in love with Egypt. That's definitely one of the places I want to visit one day. Also, when I mentioned earlier that I was reading The Vampire Chronicles by Anne Rice, in particular, book number 3, Queen of the Damned, Parts of the book is set in Egypt from thousands of years ago. And I read about Egypt in that book. It was really interesting, even though it is fiction. I just find Egypt so fascinating. I just love watching movies and documentaries about Egypt. I actually watched a documentary a few days ago, actually. I think it's called Secrets of the Saqqara Tomb or something. It's on Netflix and it's very fascinating. Kate Bush herself said that the song is very much about someone who has not yet gone to Egypt, which is me. In the song, she says, I'm in love with Egypt. My pussy queen knows all my secrets. Who is this pussy queen? I would love to meet her one day. I don't know. Is she talking about her vagina? My pussy queen? I don't know. My pussy queen knows all my secrets. I'll never fall in love again. Oh, my pussy queen. Cats. Egypt. Cats are very big in Egypt, and they always have been. People back in the day used to worship cats as these gods. Cats are queens. Egyptians believed cats were magical creatures capable of bringing good luck to the people who housed them. To honor these treasured pets, wealthy families dressed them in jewels and fed them treats fit for royalty. When the cats died, they were mummified, which I knew about. Okay, so this is a really disgusting story, but speaking of mummified pets, when I was a teenager, my mom and her boyfriend bought this really old house. It's 100 years old. And they got my cousin to renovate the house, tear down the walls, everything. The entire place was gutted. And at the time, the upstairs was completely done. And now my cousin moved on to the main floor. So I came home one day, I went upstairs to my bedroom, and on my bookcase was a mummified rat. A mummified rat. My cousin, when he ripped down the drywall, he found a mummified rat in the walls. And as a joke, he put it in my room. So obviously, I freaked out. And once the rat was removed, I took my Calvin Klein cologne and sprayed the spot where the mummified rat was. And to this day, I cannot stand the scent of that cologne because it reminds me of a mummified rat. I think the house used to be the home to a doctor who practiced inside his house. So I imagine people did die in that house now that I think about it. Anyway, let's move on to track number 6, The Wedding List. Oh, what a precious wedding this was. It is a magical day for any bride or groom to be. I mean, this was beautiful, this wedding. I mean, just from reading the lyrics, passion crime, newlyweds, groom shot dead, God help the bride, she's a widow, all in red, with his red still wet. But wait, it doesn't stop there. After she shot the guy, she committed suicide. And later, when they analyzed, they found a little one inside. It must have been Rudy's child. I shot him, honey. Never mind, she got the guy. He hit the ground, Rudy. Talk about a Greek tragedy. So it looks like this woman, this bride, is quite vengeful. I mean, this song is pretty violent, I won't lie. Do you think I'd ever let you get away with it, hun? So perhaps her groom cheated on her or did something unforgivable. He swooned in warm maroon. There's gas in your barrel, and I'm flooded with doom. You've made a wake of our honeymoon, and I'm coming for you. Don't piss Kate Bush off because she'll fucking kill you. I am very curious to know what Kate Bush has to say about this song. It says here that the song was inspired by another film by Francois Truffaut. I'm sorry if I mispronounced his name. The film is called The Bride Wore Black. It tells of a groom who's accidentally murdered. Oh, so he was accidentally murdered on the day of his wedding by a group of 5 people who shoot at him from a window. Oh, the bride succeeds in tracking down each one of the 5 and kills them in a row, including the last one who happens to be in jail. Oh, so the bride did not kill the groom. There was a group of 5 people at the wedding who were driving by and shot the groom from a window, and then the bride sought her revenge by tracking down the 5 people and killing them. Okay. Hence the title of the track, The Wedding List. Okay. It's all making sense now. I love Kate Bush songs like this. They're so out there and quirky, and I just have so many what the fuck moments when I listen to songs like this, and I love them. So now let's move on to track number 7, Violin. Woo! Oh my god. I don't know what to say. She is still surprising me. I mean, I'm gonna continuously keep being surprised by Kate Bush and her music. This was a lot of fun. Once again, totally unexpected, and I loved it. Of course, I loved the violin. I was just rocking out to some Kate Bush, and I really liked it. I will say I am really enjoying the production on this album. It's a lot of fun. This is a song where I don't really know what she's singing about. I imagine it is pretty straightforward. She's singing about a violin and she's dancing to a violin, she's rocking out to a violin. Get the bow going, let it scream to me, violin, violin, violin. And she also brings up this Johnny character, jigging along with the fiddle, oh Johnny. Someone did leave a comment and said that they think the song is what progressive rockers thought the music world was heading toward in the mid 1970s. It's an old school instrumentalist's fantasy of a big rock concert in which a violin could be as effective as an electric guitar. Okay. I just love how Kate sang the song with so much enthusiasm. It was a lot of fun to listen to. Definitely for me, one of the highlights on the album. So now let's move on to track number 8, The Infant Kiss. Okay, that was track number 8, The Infant Kiss, and I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't the biggest fan of this song. It's probably one of my least favorites on the album, if not perhaps my least favorite. I just didn't think it was that interesting, but maybe I should delve into the lyrics to find out what they mean. Maybe I'll end up liking the song more. I say goodnight, I tuck him in tight, but things are not right. What is this? An infant kiss that sends my body tingling. I've never fallen for a little boy before. No control. Just a kid and just at school. Back home, they call me dirty. His little hand is on my heart. There's a man behind those eyes. I catch him when I'm bending. How he frightens me when they whisper privately, poor stupid girl. Just from reading the lyrics, now this is my interpretation of the song before I actually find out what the song actually means. She might be singing about someone who is much younger than her, and perhaps she is falling in love or she's attracted to this younger person. Now, as to how young this person is, I don't know. The title of the track is The Infant Kiss, so it could just be a young boy, or it does say just a kid just at school, so he's at school, but back home they call me dirty. I honestly have no idea what the song's about, to be honest with you. It could also be about a young girl who is involved with this young boy as well, I suppose. It says here that the song was inspired by another movie, a gothic horror movie called The Innocents, which I haven't seen, which in turn was inspired by Henry James's novel The Turn of the Screw. The story is about a governess who believes the ghost of her predecessor's dead lover is trying to possess the bodies of the children she is looking after. Okay, well, I would never have figured that out. That's why it's important to find out the meanings to Kate Bush's songs. It's very important. I'm still not the biggest fan of the song. I probably would really listen to it again. But anyway, let's move on to track number 9, Night Scented Stock. Already, and that was tracks number 9 and 10, Night Scented Stock, and then that progressed into track number 10, Army Dreamers. Night Scented Stock was very short, it was under 1 minute, and then that progressed into track number 10, Army Dreamers. I feel like the song is pretty straightforward. It's about little army boys coming home from BFPO. I don't know what that is. So the BFPO is the British Forces Post Office. It looks like the song's about these men who went off to war, these army dreamers. 4 men in uniform to carry home my little soldier. Her little boy, her son in his 20s, perhaps. And then she goes on to say all the things that he could have been. What could he do? Should have been a politician, but he never had a proper education, so he couldn't do that. What could he do? Should have been a father, but he never even made it to his 20s, so he couldn't even do that. What a waste, Army Dreamers. I will say that this is a sad song to read. It says here that the song is about the effects of war and about a mother who grieves for her young adult son who is killed on military maneuvers. Saddened by his unnecessary death, she wrestles with her guilt over what she could have done to prevent it. It also says here that the song was blacklisted during the Gulf War in 1991, joining a list of 67 songs simultaneously banned from BBC airplay, including the Beatles, Frank Sinatra, ABBA, and Queen. I am very curious and excited to watch the music videos for the songs on this album. I think they would be really interesting. The only Kate Bush music videos I've watched so far and did a video for were the music videos from her Hounds of Love era. So we have come to the end of the album, track number 11, Breathing. Alrighty, that was track number 11, Breathing. Wow, this was. Where do I even start? When the song first starts, someone like myself might not think anything of it really when she says, "Last night in the sky, such a bright light, my radar send me danger, but my instincts tell me to keep breathing. Out, in, breathing my mother in, so on and so forth. She's breathing. But then about halfway through, there is this broadcast snippet. I don't know if it's a real broadcast or it was specifically made for this song, but it's a gentleman speaking as though it was like a broadcast on the news or what have you. And he says, in point of fact, it is possible to tell the difference between a small nuclear explosion and a large one by a very simple method. The calling card of a nuclear bomb is the blinding flash that is more dazzling than any light on Earth, brighter even than the sun itself. And it is by the duration of this flash that we are able to determine the size of the weapon. What are we going to do without? So this song is about nuclear war, nuclear bombs, and mushroom clouds, the mushroom clouds that form, and experimenting with the nuclear bombs and the debris making it hard to breathe. So this is a very powerful song, and I will say it's even a little disturbing. As a demonstration of the flash duration test, let's try and count the number of seconds for the flash emitted by a very small bomb, then the more substantial medium-sized bomb, and finally, one of our very powerful high-yield bombs. So they're experimenting with these bombs. They're starting with the smallest one to see how long the flash will be, and then they're going to move on to the medium-sized bomb, and then their largest size bomb. So they're experimenting with these nuclear bombs, and it's making it hard to breathe. It says here that the song was released as the lead single from the album. I mean, what a lead single to release from an album, a song about nuclear bombs. That's pretty gutsy, I will say. It says here that the lyrics of the song are about a fetus. Okay, I get it. The lyrics of the song are about a fetus very much aware of what is going on outside the womb and frightened of nuclear fallout, which implies that the song is set either during a nuclear war scare or a post-apocalyptic birth. Oh, so the part where she says, breathing my mother in, breathing her nicotine, she is a fetus in her mother's womb, breathing in the debris that her mother is breathing in. Chips of plutonium are twinkling in every lung. This song is very... I'm a little speechless. This has to be, in my opinion, I mean, this is probably one of her, not only one of the best songs on the album, but I feel like, I don't know, this song really resonated with me. I feel like this is one of her most powerfully stirring songs ever. She says that the tone of the song was inspired by Pink Floyd's The Wall, and the track includes spoken words describing the flash from a nuclear bomb. In an interview that Bush did, she described the song as her little symphony, adding that she considered the song her best work to date. I am very curious to know if there's a music video for this song. There is a music video. I have to watch the music videos from the songs on this album. I am shook. I am speechless. I was not expecting to end this video this way. There is so much more I want to say about the song, but if I don't stop now, I'm just going to keep rambling. So I'm going to stop there. I'm just going to say that I actually have no words. I'm speechless. This album is so different from her prior two albums, especially Lionheart. How do we go from Lionheart to an album like this? I really liked this album, Never Forever, and I do probably prefer this album over Lionheart. I feel like this album is a bit more controversial, especially with tracks number 10 and 11, The Army Dreamers and Breathing. She also deals with murder at a wedding and revenge and other things as well. A lot of her songs were inspired by movies and books that I haven't read or seen yet. Just like any other Kate Bush album, I really liked the lyrics, I really liked the production, and her voice was very interesting on this album. Very enthusiastic and passionate, just like her other two albums, but this one in particular. I find the lyrics on this album not as difficult to interpret as her other two albums. Out of her first three albums, this one's probably her darkest. I also really enjoyed the production on this album. I liked all the interesting sounds that I heard, and just overall the production on this album was just very interesting. I also want to mention the album artwork. The album artwork is very interesting. It looks like all of these creatures and these monsters and these animals are flowing out of her from underneath her dress. We have swans and bats and butterflies, a whale, I believe, and some cats. I do plan on one day ranking all of Kate Bush's albums in the video once I'm done listening to all her albums. But I will say, this album is probably going to be near the top. Out of her first three albums, I think this one might be my favorite. Out of the three, I don't know. I have to go back to her first two albums again. So what did you guys think of the album? And what are your favorite songs? What do you think of the themes she was talking about and the stories she was talking about on this album? And where does this album rank on your Kate Bush list? Does it sit near the top or the bottom? And out of her three albums, which one do you like the most? I am curious to know if this album back in the day was controversial back in the 1980s, especially with tracks Breathing and Army Dreamers. Was this album controversial? I mean, I did read that in 1991, there were songs, or maybe this album in general was banned from the BBC, just like songs from Queen and ABBA, what have you. But back in 1980, was this album considered controversial? So I think that's officially all I wanted to say on the album. And in my next Kate Bush video, we'll be moving on to her 1982 album, The Dreaming. Now, you guys have been hyping up this album for the longest time, so I'm very, very, very curious to find out why you guys have been hyping up this album. Just as much as her Hounds of Love album, which was the very first Kate Bush album I listened to, you guys seem to be very much obsessed with this album, The Dreaming. So look out for that video. I am hoping to upload that video sometime in December, hopefully. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. You can find me on Instagram, you can find me on Twitter, you can message me, you can tell me other artists I should check out. I'm open to any artists from any decade. You can find me on Apple Music, you can check out my playlists, and so on and so forth. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Take care.